Lakshmi, practically it is your program, so though we have suggested 40 minutes, but if you want to take a little more, it's fine. There is no problem.
Let's see how it goes. I'll take about 40 minutes or 30 minutes, and if allow some time for questions.
Yeah, that is there.
If there aren't enough questions, then I'll go back and add a few more comments.
You have the ultimate power, override anything you want.
All right.
This 1 hour is yours.
I hope Professor Veeravalli heard that.
No, we are here to facilitate, sir. I think the ideal facilitator is one who doesn't say anything and make the maximum for this for the guests and the speaker.
Lakshmi, whether you know, we have the 2-year program, each one of the year. As a program director, you heard, saw talk with Vidya. The other person is Dr. Suresh Srinivas. He's also here.
Very good evening, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan. Good evening, Dr. Bala.
Good evening, Dr. Suresh.
Yeah.
Shall we start, Ranga and Sanjay?
Yes, sir.
Wait another few minutes.
No,
it's around 300.
350, sir.
350?
350. Sir, we can start.
We can start now, sir.
Okay, Ramaswamy, could you put on the videotape? So, good evening, friends. It is so good for me to introduce, besides the AV, Mr. a close friend, a strong supporter, and a cheerleader for Great Lakes. I know Lakshmi from his TCS days, because I was very much involved with Kohli, and Lakshmi was the regional head of TCS in Europe, probably in Switzerland. and several other knowledge-oriented, IT-oriented industry, over 27 years of experience. But the most important turning point in his life is leaving TCS and making a slight permutation of CTS. TCS is CTS in a different way, the same three letters. And take it on the mighty TCS and several others in a beautiful way as a co-founder and vice president, CEO, starting sometime like 1994 or something like that, around that time. And then he put Chennai on the map because of Cognizant Technology Solutions as not only the headquarters in US, in New Jersey, but also in India, in Chennai. And right from the very first day, I thought of having Great Lakes Institute of Management. He was one of the prime mover who wanted to put Chennai as the sort of a knowledge capital of India. That was his dream. He was very much involved with this Chennai Mathematical Society, the Chennai Mathematical Institute, and then very many other things, including IIT's Research Park, along with Ashok Junjanwala and the IIT director in Madras or Chennai at that time. And and then he thought of suggesting that we needed a business education school, and in key areas. IFMR was very close to him. So right from the beginning, his vision is to have a series of independent organization which excels in each area of the world, whether it is engineering, technology, business education, technology, education, etc. And he was willing to put a lot of time and money in creating entrepreneurs and edupreneurs. Edupreneurs. And he's the first guy to tell me that word. Technopreneurs, I heard. Edupreneurs. And so right at the very first year, myself and late Professor Sriram went to his office that we have a now a class graduating. And I am very pleased to inform you, in the class of about 123 or so, the highest number of students went to IT industry, of which Cognizant has a significant role. Right from the beginning, even though there was no other class, both Infosys and TCS gave what is called as a tier 1 rank, which gives you the higher salary, and Cognizant also did that. So I am very pleased to introduce a member who is on the Business Advisory Council. And then when we were awarded from the Government of India, this AGBI, the Incubation Center, Atal Great Lakes Bala Incubation Center, he is the vice chairman of that program in cultivating, nurturing, and creating a new value to the students. So for the very first time in this year end, we not only graduating the students, we are graduating startups, quick startups, lean, at the same time meaningful startups. And one startup has been supported by KKR in raising more than $6 million, located right now in Hyderabad, called Whistle Drive. and we are so successful. And therefore, I thought it is time for us to talk about not only the technology, but the new technology, new age technology. And he was the first guy when we introduced the very first time in the entire country, a whole program with a concentration on business analytics. And he inaugurated that. And that business analytics took the next avatar of AIM law, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, and algorithmic analytics. Then AIM law became AIM lab. I added the blockchain at the end. And now it is going to have one more transformation with a practical experiential learning by creating clever as well as constructive startups and doing a productive thing. So the rest of the things are in his Wikipedia and the material that we have suggested. I just thought of to introduce him more, how he is very much close to Great Lakes. So at the 10th anniversary, when we celebrated 10th anniversary of Great Lakes in the year 2004, 2004 we started, 2014 we had a celebration in Delhi, Bombay, etc., and also in Chennai. He was a speaker for that, along with Sunil Chopra, whom you met last week. So, without much ado, let us give a very big and warm welcome to the one and only Lakshmi Narayanan. Thank you very much, sir. All yours.
Thank you, Professor. It's indeed a great honor to be this session. There's a lot that Professor Bala talked about my early days of TCS and Cognizant. I won't talk about those things. One of the things that we used to say in Cognizant, how do organizations get to be innovative? We were a customer-centric organization, and we used to say, what have you done for your customer lately? What you did last year, what you did the year before doesn't count. That's done and dusted. It's over. You've been recognized for it. The customer is happy. But unless you think about what have you done lately, you will not be innovative. So that's something that I have tried to follow also. Don't think much about Cognizant, but look at new areas of development. And that's the context in which I want to speak today. Now, this is about deep technology, both science and technology, and the emerging areas. Is it the question? Yeah, the question that everybody would ask is, that's deep science and technologies, maybe for PhDs in science and engineering. In what way is it relevant to the management students? There is a lot of relevance. There is, in fact, a lot more relevance to the management students than even to the science and technologists, because they live in a different world, and the management students and the business leaders live in a different world. We are expected to be far more practical and deliver benefits to humanity, whereas science and technologists are in the pursuit of knowledge. They'll create knowledge, they'll advance sciences and make it available for us to deploy. I'll give you some simple examples just to set the context, and then we will go into the deep dive. Because I was reminded of this example today, the evening just before this. Our minister Nitin Gadkari said ethanol is also going to be part of the equation for mobility in the country. In addition to biocarbon, fossil fuels, we're going to have ethanol also in the mix, and I'm going to announce a policy regarding that. So I said, okay, that's interesting. Then only last week, there was an announcement by the FAME group, which is advancing electric mobility. And they announced a policy saying electric batteries, electric vehicles producers will get a subsidy of something like 15,000 rupees a kilowatt hour. I mean, kilowatt hour is the energy, the way it is measured. So these two things, it appears to be going in two different directions. And the question is, if you give that money, that subsidy to electric vehicle manufacturers, it is very easy for them to go out and import some batteries from China, fit it and sell it. And who benefits? Does the Indian manufacturing industry benefit? May not be to that extent. But on the contrary, if you were to give it to the electric battery manufacturers in the country, yeah, they may use it and produce a lot of batteries, but if the original equipment manufacturers, the scooter makers and the car makers don't embrace electric mobility, then that will be a waste. So challenges like this will have to be resolved because these are not science and technology related challenges. That problem is solved. These are strategy and management related challenges. Tactics at the policy level, what should be done, etc. So we'll come back to this renewable energy stream and see what are the challenges, how science and technology has delivered something, how it is for management professionals and business leaders to tap that and create a new world order that is free of high carbon emission and the climate crisis that we are headed towards is averted. If that context is understood, what is deep technology and what is high growth sectors? Why is there a high growth sector? Are all the sectors not growing? About 4 or 5 years back, the World Economic Forum published a report saying there are 4 sectors globally that are growing faster than any of the other sectors because these 4 sectors are investing in R&D much more than any of the other sectors. Why are they investing in R&D? Because there are opportunities. So which are those 4 sectors? First one is space and aviation. We're all familiar with all the things that are going on in the area of space, SpaceX, space launches, satellite launches, drones, supersonic flights, individual mobility, flying cars, and so on. So these are the type of things that are happening in that space, in the area of space, and that's a high growth area. The next one, of course, is a very obvious one, the digital information technology, communication technology. The whole digital world is on fire. It's been growing and will continue to grow. That impacts everything. I don't need to talk about it, starting from payment systems to everything else. Digital is impacting. The IMLA that Professor talked about, I'm sure in the months to come, there'll be alphabets added to it. You'll get a string of about 12 to 15 alphabets there within a short period of time. Those are the type of advances that are taking place in that area. The third area is biotechnology, genomics, and artificial protein production and artificial organ production. The whole area of biosciences is again something that has received significant R&D investment and that's continuing to grow at a rapid pace. One example is Moderna's vaccine. That messenger RNA principle, don't need to know much about it. All that we need to know is it's a different way of producing vaccines. They've been struggling with this or working on it for the last 7 or 8 years. There was a conviction, there is a belief that mRNA is the solution for fighting newer viruses. And now the time has come for them to demonstrate, and that's a runaway success. That's another area where there is a lot of advances that are taking place. And finally, renewable energy. Renewable energy starting from electric mobility to hydrogen-based fuel cells to the resurgence of nuclear power. I won't be surprised if you'll hear about a lot of nuclear power stations being constructed. So we'll explore that a lot more. So these are the 4 high growth sectors. And about 4 or 5 years back, it was mentioned in a study by the World Economic Forum that they were at that time contributing to about 11 to 12% of the global GDP. And in the next 10 years, their contribution to the global GDP will go up to about 20%. So that's the rate at which these sectors are growing. And for all of you to be part of a high growth sector guarantees faster growth in your career, in your learning, in your knowledge. So I would first of all encourage you to keep track of this sector, look for opportunities in these sectors as they are the sunrise sectors. Drones, there are plenty of startup companies. We'll probably look at a few examples in these areas as well as we go along. But one of the things that I wanted to mention is about renewable energy. The renewable energy is there's a whole lot of things that are involved in it. When we think of renewable, we think about electric cars, electric mobility, and that's the only thing that we talk about. Lithium-ion batteries that are replacing everything. Yes, good story. That is something that is happening in India. It is making rapid progress, and appropriate actions are also being taken in India by the industry. I'll give you one just quick example. The tractor making companies, TAFE, Mahindras, Escorts, Sonalika, these are people who probably produce about 75 to 80% of the tractors that are sold and exported from our country. And all of them are trying out electric tractors. Even before electric cars are on the road, even before electric auto rickshaws are on the road, they are trying out electric tractors. Why? It makes enormous sense. The inconvenience that the farmers go through procuring diesel from petrol stations that are far away, number one. The runaway prices that we are experiencing in both petrol and diesel prices. And most importantly, in many of the states, electricity is free. So charging these lithium-ion batteries and using them in tractors makes enormous economic sense. So that's something that is very, very, very appropriate for the Indian technology. So electric mobility, either in two-wheelers, three-wheelers, etc., is a big thing. But then when it comes to electric cars and trucks, people are betting on hydrogen-based hydrogen fuel energy as the clean, least expensive way of running or providing electric mobility. Just imagine a truck that has to carry something like 10 or 15 tons of load. If the electric battery itself weighs 4 or 5 tons, just doesn't make sense, does it? So we have to find alternate ways. Alternate ways are in the form of hybrid. There is a startup in NIT, Trichy, called Blair Motors that is working out a hybrid petrol or any fossil fuel and electric battery, and they are working on a contract with a two-wheeler OEM to produce that and try it out, and so on. So there's a whole lot of things that are happening in the area of electric mobility. And finally, I must also mention that for all these things to work, lithium-ion batteries, however efficient they are, newer chemistry will be discovered. They need to be charged. Charging requires electricity. And the electricity to charge them on a large scale is going to be produced using coal and natural gas and oil. That doesn't make sense. You're gaining in one area, but maybe losing in another area. May not be that much, but still you're losing. So what is the renewable form of energy we can use in order to charge these batteries? Solar, wind power. Great sources, very inexpensive, we can tap them. But the trouble is they're intermittent. They're intermittent because you can't rely on solar energy in the night, wind energy is seasonal, and so on. Is there some way we can get energy to be stored in a very, very efficient manner? There are energy storage systems that have come about. And there is one particular company that I would encourage all of you to just view it on YouTube. A company called Ambri, AMBRI. Some of you may already know about it. It's a company that's come out of MIT after years of research by Professor Donald Sadowin. I think that's his name. And let me see if I'm pronouncing it right. It's important for you to know that. It's a great idea. There are so many things that I learned talking about that. That is an energy storage that is based on the typical cell, except that the cell anode cathode elements are made of calcium and antimony, two of the commonly available things. And he has produced a working version of it. This operates at a high temperature, but we won't go into the science of it. It's something that has demonstrated that can store energy for a long period of time, can go through multiple cycles of charging and discharging without losing efficiency. A typical lithium-ion battery will run, you'll have to, after about 3 or 4 years, or maximum 5 years, you'll have to discard it and get it away. This energy storage system from Ambri can run for about 20 years and still the efficiency will be 98% plus. That's the chemistry. And there are two principles that he enunciated in that discovery. First and foremost, the traditional way of doing things is discover something, invent something, prepare it. It will be expensive initially, and then start driving the cost down the cost curve. Produce it, but meticulously expect engineering and business to drive it down the cost curve. Whereas Ambri said, that's not the way I'm going to do it. I want to make an energy storage system that is dirt cheap. And these are his words. I want it to be dirt cheap. And if I want to make it dirt cheap, I better make it out of dirt. That's the only way I can make it really dirt cheap. And he says the things that are most easily available, calcium, limestone, available in plenty everywhere. Antimony, Sp from the periodic table, you see, again, available everywhere, can be extracted at a very, very low cost. And the electrolyte is calcium chloride, a salt, like sodium chloride, which is the common salt, calcium chloride, another salt. Very easy, very inexpensive way of producing it. And he goes on to say, not only should it be made out of dirt, and that dirt should be also locally sourced so that there is no logistics issues and you don't have supply chain issues. And that's something that they have achieved. And that's a technology that is undergoing significant trials. And it's going to be I'm sure it's going to be a very clear, significant alternative to energy storage systems. And finally, nuclear is making its resurgence. Nuclear power, Bill Gates has invested in the company TerraPower. There are a lot of acquisitions that are happening in Canada and in France, which are trying out new nuclear fuels like thorium, which is always India's dream, India's 3-stage nuclear program enunciated by Homi Bhabha years back, talks about the third phase. Second phase was the fast breeder reactor. First phase is the normal nuclear fission, fast breeder reactor. Third is thorium-based energy. And that's in sight. Thorium is proliferation resistant, safer. The nuclear waste, the half-life is much lower. You don't have to store it for hundreds of years. It's safe. So you can put those nuclear power plants in Africa, anywhere, without the fear that it will be converted into a bomb someday. And this thorium is a new accident-resistant fuel. Thorium and the new technology of using some alloys to avoid the type of problem that we had in Fukushima. Fukushima was where steam reforming happened and hydrogen was produced because of the zirconium alloy and there was an explosion. So all those problems are sorted out, and so much so, nuclear power is going to be a resurgent, and that is renewable, that is emission-free. And when you have nuclear power plants, you can keep any number of charging cycles and discharging cycles, and the whole energy cycle will be emission-free. That's the dream, and that's what makes one sector, the renewable energy sector, so interesting. Not just getting rid of fossil fuel and replacing by electric batteries, but a whole lot of electric batteries, hydrogen fuel cells, nuclear energy, different chemistry as far as the batteries are concerned, different alloys and materials that are used in order to improve the safety of this, and different cycles of charging and discharging and storage so that it is viewed in a global scale. And to cap it all, there is this promise of fusion energy, which is almost like making a small sun on Earth that will provide energy for the entire universe. And one of the people who have had some success, not necessarily in the fusion area, is SpaceX. Elon Musk has said that if I have to rely on these liquid propellants and solid propellants for my rocket launches, that's not an efficient way of doing it. I have to use nuclear fuel in order to speed things up. And if I have to go to Mars in 3 months, I cannot rely on solid propellants. So his idea is, he has come up with a small modular reactor, nuclear reactor that will be used to power rockets, but not on Earth. There'll be a station in space from where some of these rockets, including people, would be launched to go into Mars and things of that nature. So people are dreaming about the future in a manner. Many of us, people like me and others, some of the others may not be able to see it. But you young people, you will see all these things happening in your lifetime. One way is just to see and experience it, but much more easy would be to participate in that industry and create that kind of an industry and manage that so that you can feel proud of what you're doing and you can enjoy the learning, the knowledge that comes with that. So like this sector, there are other sectors, by the way, space is not a big this thing. Space also, satellite costs have come down. It has come down to about less than $1,000 per kilogram for a launch of a satellite. You can book space in any of the satellite launch stations. Students are launching it all over the place. There is a company in Institute of Science, Bangalore called Digantra. They want to track space debris and give advance warning to other satellites and space stations to avoid collision in space. And they are planning to install a constellation of something like 70 satellites in space. It's a startup, small funding, great plans. There are space-focused funds. And you must have heard Jeff Bezos going to space. This space ride is, I'm sure many of you will get an opportunity too. It's not very far. It's about 60, 70 kilometers above the surface of Earth. For those of you who are in Chennai, it's like going from Chennai to Tiruvannamalai, except instead of driving on the road, you're just going vertically, spend some time in space and that weightlessness and coming back safely. So these are the type of advances that are taking place in these 4 sectors. So I do want to encourage all of you to keep track of this and be party to it. Now, the second point that I want to mention is, this is all fine. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a sociology major. My interests are elsewhere. I dropped science way back when, I don't remember. And you want me to learn deep science and deep technology? No, it's not difficult, first of all. It is something that you have to learn, but not difficult at all. Okay. Many of the things that I'm speaking to you about are not things that I've experienced. I've learned it by reading, by listening to lectures, by watching. There's so much of content that is available. After all, if you want to understand chemistry, particularly the chemistry that we are talking about that is related to fuels and electric batteries, etc., you get a reasonable understanding of the periodic table, the elements and what they stand for, what is light, what is heavy, what is radioactive, what does not react. That's it. That's all you need to know about chemistry in order for you to call yourself a person who understands science and be part of this deep tech industry. Likewise, physics, nothing complex. The world of physics is so simple, just a few laws, Kepler's laws and Newton's laws that drive everything. Everything about motion, everything about orbit in space, governed by Kepler's 3 laws, Newton's 3 laws. You understand it, you can talk about it, you can relate to anything that's happening in space or in the area of motion very well. Digital world, atoms, electrons, alpha, beta, gamma rays, very simple. You just listen to 2 or 3 of the YouTube videos that are available, you will get comfort, you will get solid knowledge about those type of things. There again, if you want to understand quantum mechanics and quantum computing, which is a new area, not very difficult. So the thing that I want to tell you is, shed the fear that science and technology is something complicated. that I need to understand science. I need to be strong in mathematics in order to do it. Mathematics is something that's going to be required everywhere, in management, in solutions. And in fact, Professor Bala rightly mentioned, the future CEOs of many corporations will be algorithmic CEOs. They understand algorithms, they understand math, they understand possibilities of what can be done with data and algorithms and mathematics. So that's something that a basic grounding will be necessary for all of you, which I'm sure you can get. And once that's done, then you're ready to impact at the 3 levels that you're expected to impact. At the policy level, at the strategic level, and also at the management level. All of you will either be part of startups or join a big company or be in the government. All these, you will, in course of time, get the responsibility to define the policy. What should the government of India policy be as far as renewable energy is concerned? Should the government bet on hydrogen? Should the government have more nuclear power stations? By the way, India has already 22 power stations, nuclear power stations. There are 16 more that are under construction under various phases. So we're committed to nuclear power, which is good, but we need many more. What should be our policy towards that? What should be the policy towards ethanol? Should we encourage our farmers to switch from what they're doing to corn growing? To what extent? These are policies that will influence businesses significantly. So to understand that is going to be important. And then at the strategic level, at the company level, if you are in a, let's say, an automotive company, a TVS company or a Hero Honda, how long will this ICE engines or the petrol engines last? When should I make a switch? What is competition doing? Should I go directly to electric mobility, or should I go directly to hydrogen fuel-based cars, or should I have an intermediate step of an hybrid phase and then move on to that? These are strategic questions. These companies are day in and day out debating and figuring out what should be done. And at the management level, if a company has defined a strategy and this is the way to go, how do I execute that? The pursuit of excellence, pursuit of quality. You cannot have failures. You cannot have failures in the new world. You cannot say, I'll invent a vaccine that will be, 60% effective, 70% effective, take a chance. No, it has to be proven to be accurate. It works every time. And when it doesn't work, I know exactly why it doesn't work. If I use a design, a machine, a car, or a truck, it shouldn't fail. If it fails, I should know exactly why it failed. Simple. That kind of a mindset has to be developed while you're studying and in the early stages of your career, where pursuit of excellence is the only way to success, quality, and the knowledge. So these are the 3 levels at which you will be making impact. And that requires a good understanding of what deep technologies are, which are the high growth centers, which is the one that is going to have the greatest potential in future years. And then you can make very learned choices about your future career and, more importantly, of your future purpose that backs your belief. So with that, I'll probably pause and elicit some comments from you all, questions, anything else that you'd like me to talk about. We'll give it 30 seconds for people to muster up enough questions or muster enough courage to ask, and then we'll keep moving. Over to you, Veeravalli, if you can moderate that, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I have a bunch of questions at this stage, which I think we'll pick up, and from there, maybe more will flow in. The first of them is relating to the 4 major areas that you identified. They are seen as high growth, high impact ones. Now, how durable do you think they would be? The technologies, some of them who come there are there forever or kind of for a very long time. Others come and go. This question is from Adarsh. So how do you see these 4 that you have chosen And which of them do you see have the potential to last longer, like internet, for example, and so on? And what is your view about picking those as such?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason these four have been picked up, I mean, it wasn't picked by me. It was, eminent people have picked that. The reason was the innovation that's happening in these four areas far outweighs all other innovation that's happening.
Right.
And two, why is that innovation happening? The R&D spend by companies in these four sectors is sometimes many times over the R&D spend in other industries.
Yeah.
So that has to produce that result. And the third most important thing is these are the sectors that is attracting a lot of investment.
Yeah.
Now, these investors, they are a different breed. Some of you, I'm sure, will become investors. The moment they have backed something with a large amount of money, they're not going to let it go. There may be an alternative, a more efficient alternative that will come for that. But initial stages, because of the investment that they have made, they'll make it very difficult for the alternative to come into play.
Right.
They'll try and kill that. So all the forces are acting in a positive manner in these sectors. And that is the reason why these are the ones that will go. As to what is durable in this, I would believe that all of them are going to be durable. Okay. Digital technologies, computing is something that is going to be there. Just look at the evolution of it in the last 50 years. From just a few large machines to the type of computing power that we have. Some of you may have seen the movie Apollo 13. Apollo 13 mission was a failure, but then they brought the astronauts back. Gene Kranz was the project director. A phenomenal story. And the computer that was on board was less powerful than the computing power that we have in a smartphone today. Huge computers in the spacecraft, less powerful than what we hold in our hands every day. And in order to get that to be programmed and work, the ground station had to send 18 pages of computer program by teletype, by telex, that would get printed there, and they will key it and create the program and get the space capsule back to Earth. Okay. So there's the type of hardships that have gone on. So that's the development that has gone. Today, we thought going to moon was great. And people said, oh, we have landed on the moon, end of story, we'll postpone the program. Now look at the new one. We've reached Mars. People are talking about constructing a colony in Mars. And you know how it is going to be constructed? Building blocks. There is a 3D printing of the first house and a 3D printing of another 3D printing machine. And these 3D printing machines will keep multiplying, and they'll multiply the 3D printed houses to colonize Mars. So these are all running in the imagination of people, and they'll make it happen. That's durable. And as long as life is there, we need biotechnology, genetics. And as long as we live on this earth, we need energy.
Sure.
No other form of energy. So all these sectors are really very, very durable sectors.
Now, these that you called out, are they equally valid for India? And a related question to that is, deep tech requires deep investments, and India has traditionally been basically trailers and adapters and late adapters kind of a thing. How do you see these things reconciling going forward?
Yeah, very interesting. So India has a good position in all of this. As far as space technology is concerned, I think we are on par with everybody. I mean, nuclear technology, we are on par with the globe. Everybody has. In fact, some of the first thorium-based fuels will come out of India rather than elsewhere in the world, and so on. There is a Chicago-based company that Dr. Anil Kakotkar is supporting. That is actually their fuel is being tested in the Inox National Nuclear Laboratory in Idaho. So we are there. There are two things that are going globally that is good for the entire globe, all the nations. First and foremost, the digital revolution caught on one of the primary reasons is because of open sourcing and open innovation. Everything, nobody said, no, I'm going to patent this, I'm going to keep it to myself. This search engine is my patent, I'm going to keep it to myself and nobody can use it. That's not the way it works. Every new thing that happens, AI, image processing, images matching, language processing tools, all are available in open source form. It's free. If you want to start a company that is processing language in a natural manner and set up a call center, you just pick up all the software that's available, put it together in a unique way, and you have a company and you have a solution. So open source and open innovation drove the digital world. And that's the drive that everybody is talking about in other areas as well. It has come in certain areas. For example, look at the pharmaceutical industry. There was companies that spent millions and billions of dollars on R&D used to keep the patents forever. Now, the patents are there only for a certain limited period of time, 15 years now. So after that, it's available, and that gives you sufficient time to copy, to innovate, and that time period will also reduce over a period of time. And in the area of vaccines, everything is available freely now. Adenoviral methodology, the mRNA methodology that Pfizer has followed, so much so there are a couple of Indian companies that are also trying to do vaccines using the mRNA methodology. So open source is one area that is going to level the field, and India with its bright talent is going to play a leading role. And India is already established as a very responsible power. In the nuclear area, it's been extremely responsible. Never did anything out of the way and stuck to all agreements. So that's, clearly India is among the top 7 to 10 countries in the world which will benefit.
One related question on that from Sabya Chachi is, India is not signing NPT. Will that be an hindrance? Do you see? And a related question to that is, the arc that you drew is between science and tech developing things, policy actually enabling it in macro interventional things, and corporations picking up. How good do you see are the channels for these agencies talking and then making it? How efficient is it? How inefficient is that? So isn't that a challenge?
Yeah. No, the first one is, as far as the NPT is concerned, that's not an issue. We signed that 123 agreement. One of the biggest challenges that we have is getting nuclear fuel for our power stations. So after the 1996 atomic explosion, that our great leader, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, said, I know the consequences, I know it's going to be sanctions, but I still want to prove. There were serious sanctions that set back our nuclear program and nuclear progress for 2 decades. And then it's only after India signed this 123 agreement that the Nuclear Suppliers Group, NSG as it is called, have agreed to provide the nuclear fuel that is required here. Why? Because although we have nuclear weapons capability, we did not use it, misuse it, we did not threaten it. And we went by the rule book. Although we didn't sign NPT, we were not party to any proliferation anywhere in the world. Okay. That is the record that stood by us. That's the integrity that we demonstrated, because of which, whether we sign it or not, it doesn't really matter, because the global powers will trust us as far as nuclear energy is concerned. As to the policy and its translation, big question mark. People need to understand this. It's not the type of understanding that you and I have. These are all superficial, somewhat of the top 10% of the layer we understand. And if we try to make policy with that knowledge, that will be a failure. But there are experts. There are people, there are experts in every field. There is a Department of Science and Technology, and there are institutions like the IITs, the management institutions. All these have some fantastic people. They have to be constantly consulted. If you look at any of the other developed countries, academia, industry, and government collaboration is very, very high. Government will not make policies without consulting academics. That is something, that's a big step that India has to take, and the bureaucrats shouldn't think that they know it all and they determine it. That's going to be one hindrance. Once the policy is on the right footing, then subsequent things follow. Policy has to be, you cannot keep changing policy year after year. It has to be a long, well thought out policy, a roadmap for the next 20 years so that people can invest. Why do people not invest? They're unsure. When will they change? They're saying, I'll give it used to be 10,000 rupees or 8,000 rupees per battery, 7,500, I think, will be the subsidy. Suddenly, they double it. Look at all the people who produce so many batteries at that 7,500 rupees. They'll feel left out. So it's those type of inconsistent policies will not help. So consistency in policy is something that is very, very important. But that requires consistency of people. They always quote the Chinese example. China, the Reserve Bank, their central bank governor has been there for the last 15 years. The electricity board, the central authority for China, has been there for 15 years. And the last 12 years, there has been no change in the electricity tariff at all in China. Same rate anywhere, any province that you go to. Consistent policy that is followed.
There are a couple of questions relating to the ethanol. Now, some of these technologies do have their impact and their consequences on the environment. For example, ethanol and the sugar cane to kind of use that consumes a lot of water and has those kind of tangential impacts. And in general, the playoff between the advancement of technology and the climate and its consequences. And a related question is, where is the world in terms of waking up to the climatic disaster? Are we likely to do what is required before it is too late? So there are two different questions, but I thought I'd just connect them.
Yeah. Fairly complicated. I don't think I have the answer, but I can tell you what my view is. As far as climate change is concerned, it is real and the actions are being taken. Everybody is saying 2050 deadline for becoming completely carbon neutral is a must. And that appears to be achievable at this point in time because it's so far out. Many countries have promised to have 2030 as an intermediate milestone where they want to reduce it by a significant portion. Different countries have made different types of commitments. And so climate change is very, very real. If we do alternate things like ethanol, and if it leads to water scarcity, how do we protect water tables, etc.? Yes, complex cycles that we have to think through and work in those areas. One advantage that India appears to have, at least in the minds of welfare economists, and to some extent the behavioral economists also. Some of the recent Nobel Prize winners in economics are from these disciplines. They believe that you have to make a choice between consumerism and sustainability. Consumerism is where you want more and more of everything. I want this. I bought this car. I want a bigger car. I want a better car. I want more power. I want AC in all my rooms. I want this, that, and the other. As opposed to sustainable consumption. They're saying that no, I'm not going to buy everything that is what is needed for me. Not necessarily only minimalistic living, but sustainable living. What is sustainable? I'll procure it, do it. And India seems to have the advantage as far as sustainability is concerned. We are not a consumer society like most of the Western world, at least the American, the European world is. Although we are moving in that direction, this may be the right time to take a relook at it and say our policy should be more towards sustainability than consumerism. And that way, why do we say that the per capita power consumption in the US is 10 times more than India? And look at the potential. We have 10 times headroom to grow. Why should we consume the same amount of electricity that those people are consuming? If I can have a comfortable, happy life with twice as much of what I'm consuming today, we should settle for that. It's not even in settling. It is something that is good in the interest of planet, in the interest of humanity. So those are choices that we as individuals will have to make. And the policy making people also will have to guide us so that we are incentivized to think in those directions and keep this place safe and ward off challenges of climate crisis.
A couple of questions relating to your views on some of the other technology possibilities. One is on tidal and wave energy. This is from Apurva. We have such a vast coastline. What is your reading on how advanced is that technology and harvestable?
Yeah. No, it's been harvested. The Scandinavian countries have done that. In fact, even UK has done it. The North Sea is supposed to be one of the rougher seas, and they have a farm there, a tidal wave farm that is producing quite a lot of electricity. Initial investment is very, very high. And unlike the solar energy, it is not intermittent.
Okay.
It varies a little bit, during the full moon and new moon day and the tidal cycles.
Sure.
But otherwise, it's more or less continuous. That's a safe form, but very high levels of investment is required. So let the rest of the world chase the cost curve down, and at an appropriate time, we can grab and join that race.
The other question is relating to quantum computing. Is that something which is appropriate for India to look at? Do we have the infrastructure? Do you think that is appropriate for us? What's your take on that? This is from Arun.
Yeah. Quantum computing is something that is a very promising area, extremely promising in terms of speed, in terms of the newer type of computers that are required, and so on. For building quantum computers requires a lot of investments. We may not be able to invest it at this point of time, but quantum computers require an entirely new range of software, completely new thing that we are good at. We can participate in that. Anything that requires intellectual capability and does not require a lot of investment, we'll be very good at. Indians are very good at it. And so one half of the quantum computing thing is something that we would be able to participate quite effectively. And I don't know how many of your quantum computing people, you might have just about heard 0 and 1. There is nothing like 0 and 1. And, it'll be interesting for you to read something about that Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat is one of those classic stories. Just fun to read that. And that will give you the best understanding of what quantum state is and what quantum computing is.
Yeah. We are almost we have just crossed 8:30. Yes. I don't know how much more time. The last couple of questions that I will bring up, unless more time is given by you, it's to coming back to kind of looking at we as students. There's several of them who asked the question. What are the kind of top few technology areas that we should keep track of, which have immediate term fructification in terms of corporations taking them up, and then in turn employment and growth opportunities are high for us to focus on, as you see? And what are the sunrise corporations and entities that also you see? So that right, this question is from 2 or 3 of them. They want to kind of see what are the kind of career paths that can be affected.
Yeah, let's look at it broadly. We have talked about the new sectors, the high growth sectors. Let's try and see the opportunities in the other sectors. They are also growth sectors, but not as high growth as the 4 that I mentioned. Look at agriculture. The level of mechanization in India is low. The level of business knowledge that gets applied in the agriculture and the farming area is very, very low. But there are companies that are making headway. Hudson Agrotech or Agro Products. Hudson is a company that everybody knows that it is, at least this part of India, the South India or in Tamil Nadu, they'll know they make milk. It's one of the largest producers of milk. From there, they expanded into ice creams, chocolate ice creams, cheese, and so on, expanded completely. And since they have had a surplus of cheese, they said, there is this big urban-rural divide. People in the rural areas think about pizza, but cannot consume that pizza. So why don't I use the surplus cheese that I have and create a pizza brand that's available in rural areas as well as in urban areas? They created a brand called Oyola Restaurants, a large chain. And today, Oyola from Hudson is the largest vegetarian pizza chain in the country. Okay. So people in rural areas need not be starved of pizzas, they can get it. Likewise, similar story with Amul. Amul, you go to their webpage, the first page is, do you want to apply for a franchise? They just want to go about opening shops everywhere. They have ice creams, they have baked products, they have cheese, they have yogurt, you name it, they have it. So that's an industry that is growth, and there is innovation. There is innovation in the form of products. There is innovation in the form of retail. There is innovation in the form of supply chain. Second area, we'll talk about manufacturing. Look at all the incentives the government is providing, starting from just the statement of Atmanirbhar and the production-linked incentives, PLIs that they give into manufacturing companies. So why would people not invest in manufacturing? Why should we still be importing toys from China, the too poor quality toys from China? It doesn't take much to set up an injection molding plant and manufacture toys. It doesn't take much effort to create renewable batteries. It doesn't take much effort, at least for the large houses that we have, to start manufacturing cells, the batteries in India. That's a great opportunity as far as manufacturing is concerned. And finally, manufacturing capital equipment, machines that make products. We are eternally dependent on that. One of the promises that Reliance Industries made, this new announcement, is it's not as though they want to get into the electric mobility, manufacture cells, batteries, etc. They're saying, I'll manufacture the machinery that will be bought by industries to make batteries, to make vehicles, to make other things in the area of renewable energy. Those are all in manufacturing. There is opportunity. The retail and logistics, there's opportunity, and so on. It's countless. So it's just if you have the capability, if you have the competence to get there, what is it that industry is looking at? You need the skills and the knowledge that is required, but above all, the other three components of competence is what they're looking at. They want to find people with good values, a good attitude, and good behavior. These three combined with good skill that you learn in your colleges, that you're a perfect individual to make a difference in any industry that you join.
For want of time, I'm going to skip a couple of them. To answer the last question, given all of these, as youngsters, when we are graduating, what are the few things that you would advise us to be prepared for, or what, as a senior leader in industry, would you expect us to come prepared for this kind of a world? 1, 2, 3, if you were to say.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, very interesting. We normally think about a job and then progressing into a career and then finding the purpose. But that is speeding up now. I find that there are a lot of students coming out of colleges with a purpose in mind. They're clear. This is the broad area. They may not be crystal clear. They may not have the clarity of thought, but they know, hey, this is what I want to be. This is the purpose that I think I'm born in this world. And that's what I want to do. It's that belief. You have to have that belief in something and then pursue that. If you have certain belief, or if you don't necessarily have to be creative and have your own unique belief, you follow the belief of others. There's this Simon Sinek, one of those inspirational speakers, used to talk about, why is Apple so successful? Apple makes computers, Dell makes computers, Lenovo makes computers, all of them. But why is it that people like Apple, apart from the fact that it is a good product, and the others are also good products? It's not so much. It's the way they sell. The way they sell is not, I make this product, this has this processor, etc. They say, my belief is, Apple says, my belief is this world is going to be A, B, C, D. And if you believe in what I believe, you will come with me. You will buy my product. If you believe what I believe, you'll do the things that are necessary to be done in that area. So it's creating that belief or embracing the belief of one or two of those people who you can relate to. And if you come out with that, then you can pursue it vigorously and you will have success. I mean, success as far as material success is already guaranteed. You're in Great Lakes, you pass out, job is not going to be a problem, salary is not going to be a problem. In the years to come, you will own a car, own a house, get married, have a good life. But what is that belief and purpose that you want to make a difference is where you have to apply your mind. And I wish you all the very best. Thank you for sharing this evening with me.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Dr. Suresh Ramanathan, the Dean, has joined us from Seattle. And I will now hand this over to him for proposing a vote of thanks and then bring this session to a conclusion. Thank you very much on my behalf, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan. This was absolutely outstanding. I apologize. I joined in a little late because we had terrible weather last night, and I couldn't sleep at all, and so I just ended up in a kind of a bad situation. But I really listened to this with so much interest. This was fascinating, particularly when you were touching upon the role of energy and talking about the new technological developments that are happening in this space, in terms of storage of energy and so on. I think these are very, very exciting times. When you talk about how technology is going to be touching our lives in such profound ways. And it is definitely exciting for all our students, because they are at the crossroads right now in terms of thinking about where their careers will be, where they want to be as well, and to think about the future not simply in terms of what is, but what will be. I think the way you kind of encapsulated all of this, put it all together in a way that everybody could possibly assimilate. I think this was absolutely beautiful. So I just wanted to thank you, profoundly for your very, very inspirational talk. The way you brought it all together for everybody, I think was fascinating. Just touching upon everything that is happening today in the in the area of technology, in the area of business, and how things are developing and how things will unfold over the next decade or so. Particularly the exciting times that India is likely to have in this process. I think that we can actually be at the forefront of not waiting for technology to come to our doorsteps after several years, but actually being at the forefront in leading change in this area. I think that is a very important aspect to think about. And so I just wanted to thank you once again. And I would love to, again, once I'm back in Chennai, and if there is an opportunity for us to meet, I would love to come by and say hello to you, or, of course, have you on campus. You are a well-wisher of Great Lakes for several years. I would love to be to have you and invite you over and get to spend some time with you. So thank you very much on behalf of Great Lakes, on behalf of all our students, on behalf of all our faculty and everyone who's assembled here. I wanted to thank you profusely from my heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi.